Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today. I have my beautiful TikTok sister friend, Thea, here with us today. And can I just say, I don't know how we connected on TikTok, but
Random.
it's so random, but I'm so grateful for it because it's like, oh, you are just a breath of fresh air. And I really, really appreciate you being here to talk about a very sensitive, challenging thing that you deal with from a day to day basis. And you look beautiful,
Thank you.
like being sick. What? So,
Hashtag, but I do not look sick. Hashtag, but I don't look sick.
right, right. So, go ahead and take it away from here.
All right. So, first of all, I have kind of a complicated dysautonomic syndrome, and I'm going to give you the official diagnosis, which is I have neurogenic orthostatic hypotension with compensatory tachycardia and sotomotor dysfunction. Okay, that's that's the original diagnosis. I then have 6 comorbidities to go along with it because dysautonomia is a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. So if you think about the autonomic nervous system, it's everything subconscious. So respiratory, your gut, your brain, your blinking, temperature, heart rate, blood pressure. It regulates your veins in your legs to remind them to tighten back up.
Right.
Mine brain kind of forgets that. And so I have something called blood pooling, and mine happens to be moderate. It used to be moderate to severe. I started on a new medication and it's helped quite a bit. So my comorbidities, chronic migraines, which means I have more than 15 a month, and my severity gets where I really wish that I could not be alive. I don't want to kill myself. I'm not suicidal, but the pain is so intense that I really wish that I wasn't in my own body, kind of thing.
Right.
So I get more than 15 of those a month, and I actually have a whole separate migraine protocol for when I get those. I have fibromyalgia, which is moderate. It used to be moderate to severe. It's downgraded with some new medication protocols. Chronic fatigue syndrome. And a lot of people don't know probably what that is, and I'll touch on that. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, number 3, which is a mild one, and that has several different categories and levels to it. And mine is a very mild one, but I still have it. I also have the blood pooling, and I have something called mast cell activation. Now there's 2. There's a disorder and a syndrome. I have the syndrome. The disorder is more severe. And basically, mast cell activation syndrome is where your body is allergic to itself, and it creates histamines for no reason. And you can have a flare up about nothing. So you can overdo it one day, or you can eat a food, or you can just be sleeping and you get a flare. So I take medication for that. And so that's a lot to all deal with. So how this all came about was 18 years ago. My son was 3, and I was on my way to pick him up from special ed preschool for speech therapy. He was nonverbal at the time. And I had come over an overpass, and at the bottom of the overpass, there was a light, and it happened to be fair time, and it was very busy, and everybody kind of goes really fast over the overpass. And I knew that it was fair time, so I kind of crawled over the pass because I anticipated a long line of cars. Sure enough, there was, so I stopped. The car behind me hit me going 40 miles an hour because it didn't stop and shoved me into a van in front of me and literally caused my car to go like this and broke the driver's seat. And I had a motorized driver's seat. So it wasn't just like a regular seat, it was a motorized heavy duty one. And we got it replaced. And 2 weeks later, I was taking our son to Seattle's Children's Hospital. And this older couple didn't see me and hit me going 70 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
In my front right panel, broke the front right axis. And that jarring totaled my car. And I was able to pull over. And because of the muscle memory of the car accident 2 weeks prior, my hands wouldn't let go of the steering wheel. And I whipped up to look up into the rearview mirror to check on Sebastian because he was crying. And I couldn't see. I couldn't see. I couldn't focus. And so I whipped my whole body around to check on him, but my arms wouldn't move. And I basically tore a bunch of things. So I spent 3 years, the next 3 years, having 7 upper body surgeries. And at the end of the 3 years with the surgeries, procedures, all the therapies, you go in with car accidents and you have what they call an individual medical evaluation. And this tells the courts, jobs, anything like this, how disabled you are. And I walked away 36% whole body impaired.
Oh my God.
All upper body. Now, at the time, I was a very successful, independent, licensed massage therapist. My focus was on repetitive injury, working with doctors. 95% of my business was doctor referrals. So I built insurances myself. And my clientele would be truck drivers, hairdressers, teachers, mechanics, anybody who had repetitive injuries from doing the same things over and over, where they're not going to get it fixed. It's more of a palliative care, so that they can continue to do their job in less pain. And so I tried for 2 more years to try to massage, and I finally just threw the towel in and said, no, I can't do this. Several years later, our son was diagnosed with autism. He was a late diagnosis at 9, and we were in a very toxic environment emotionally for my husband and I and for our son. And we decided to up and move an hour and a half away. And it was the best move. We didn't anticipate it would be a good move for anything but just for us. But what happened was I just started finding myself. Right. Who am I as a woman, as a wife, as a mom to an autistic kid, as an artist? And that, I would say, is where we began as a family. We were struggling. We were not cohesive. We were not making it because we had all of these struggles. So we land in this new place. We're finding our place, but I have been now diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I'm like, okay, I'm hurting, but I can still function. I tried getting some jobs here and there, but with Sebastian, I just wasn't able to keep them due to separation anxiety and some other issues. I ended up homeschooling him for several years because that's what he needed. But we ended up having just this beautiful community of support. And that's where I really started my life journey as a woman, and where I started to change my perspective on life, where I could start looking at more positive things and not such a narrow-minded view of of people and experiences. And when you have a disabled child, people judge. And I had always been that judging person without realizing it.
Right.
And until it happens to you, wow, an eye opener. And
Right.
so I started realizing that I needed to change who I was from the inside out. And I am Russian Orthodox. I love my faith. It is deeply ingrained in me. It's a choice that I make. But I also subscribe to a beautiful amount of, I, I incorporate all sorts of energy work into and holistic care. I believe in listening to Hertz music. Um, it starts with a B, by something beats. By
Yeah. I can't think of the name of it either, but I
It's
turned
kind
those
of
on
like
YouTube.
Hertz, that kind of things where you're, and there's science behind it. So it's not like I'm being unfaithful to my faith. There's actual science behind this to help with your body. And
Right.
so I am very open to incorporating every tool into your toolbox. And it's been a wild journey. And then my husband lost his job in the place that we lived because it was a contracted position, first of all. But um, Hanford Nuclear is really big in Eastern Washington, and the Hanford Nuclear Plant. And a lot of people lost their positions there. And there were 2,600 machinists out of work at that time. And so he started looking where he could. We ended up relocating to Western Washington. And I struggled a lot over here. I struggled um, because I had this beautiful art community. I had been making silver and copper jewelry, and I'd been selling it. I was involved with Special Olympics, and I had a great autism parent community. I had this 509 arts group, which we got together and we experienced um, art together. And then there was this great old downtown area that had all of these beautiful hipsters, and I was 10 years older than all of these young people, but they accepted me and I hung out with them and I learned. Boy, did I learn. I learned about myself. I learned how to be a better friend. I learned how to be more open and honest with myself, looking within myself. And boy, they didn't give me any reprieve. They
Right.
just cut me to the core. And one of the biggest things that they kept asking was why? Why do you believe this? Where did this come from? And if it came from so and so telling you this, why do you believe it?
Right.
And that was mind boggling, right?
Yeah.
All of these thoughts and preconceived judgmental ideas that I had of the world, how I viewed my body as a woman, as a wife, gender roles, all of that. And so when we moved to Western Washington, we became a lot more insular, a lot more insular. I didn't have the support that I did. And our son was really struggling. He wanted to go to a brick and mortar school, but it was really overwhelming with him, and he was becoming comatose. That's the best way to describe it. He was giving it all at school. He would come home and there was nothing.
Right.
There was nothing. There was one word answers or explosive anger. And he was 14, 15 at the time. And a friend of ours said, so I was thinking outside the box because that's what I do. I'm thinking outside the box. How do I help this child? And I remember Temple Grandin, who is one of the most famous autistic people. And there's a movie, Claire Danes plays her in a movie, if anybody ever is interested in watching it. She has this whole thing about cows. And she found this hug machine, and she found if she was squeezed really tight, she felt better. So I'm thinking, okay, I know that he likes pressure. So what can I do? So I was looking on Groupon one night in the middle of the night, after I've cried myself to sleep and woke up, and I saw bariatric chamber. And I thought, oh, bariatric chamber. No social interaction. He would get compression, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling my friend about this that I had met over on this side of the mountains. And she said, well, why don't you do scuba diving? And I said, scuba diving? I don't know that he would, function well doing that. She said, well, I have a friend who is an instructor and her son is autistic. And she's doing a teen summer camp. So I said, alrighty then, talk to my husband. And that was his 16th birthday present, was scuba diving camp.
Wow.
And he talked to me when he got under the water in a shorty with compression, 45 minutes, because it was a 45-minute drive one way, 45-minute drive back with a $6 toll fee. Right. So he talked to me for 45 minutes. And then the next morning he got up and he talked to me for 45 minutes. And our lives changed. So I became the scuba mamacita.
Boom.
This was my role. I packed up a pop-up tent, single butane burners, and I would make homemade soups, grilled homemade sandwiches for all the divers, because Sebastian's a lot to take on at that age. His social anxiety, he wasn't, he was just coming in, and that was just kind of my silent thank you to them, to feed them, because they have to have a decompression between tank dives and they always eat. And it's usually, they were just eating like protein bars and things like that, and fruit. And I'm like, I'm just going to cook for y'all. And so that became who I was. Meanwhile, in the background, I'm ignoring my health.
Yeah.
Because now my son is being successful. So I'm ignoring what's going on with me.
Right.
It must be fibromyalgia. Oh, I passed out. Must be, I'm super tired. Must just be the chronic fatigue. Oh, I'm dizzy all the time. Or my shortness of breath is really bad. Or my dry eyes, or whatever. And I started ignoring it. My husband, because he is 6'6", he's very tall. He stands a lot. He required 2 low back fusions. And the second one happened 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And he didn't fare well. And it was supposed to be an overnight visit in Seattle. Most people say, when I say that we're near Tacoma, they're like, oh, you're near Seattle. And I'm like, no, it's an hour and a half north. It's not really close.
Right.
And so we had Sebastian down here, barely not functioning at all. And it's supposed to be an overnight visit up to Seattle. And I'm up here with Richard. And he almost dies on the table. Oh, yeah. And he's in ICU. And he ends up staying for 5 days. And I'm stuck. And I am emotionally, like, I don't know what to do because I'm scrambling. So thankfully, this friend was able to come and stay. But at that time, Sebastian was a lot to take on. And so for somebody to take him on, that was a lot to ask. And that was very vulnerable for me, which also caused angst and stress, because then the whole time I'm thinking, okay, make sure that he's not eating gluten in his he eating, because if you don't actually make food for him, he won't eat. So I know that he looks like he's functioning and neurotypical, but he really isn't. Make sure that he's doing this. And meanwhile, Richard's got an infection and they don't know where it's going on. And so I'm in two places at once. 3 weeks later, he had to have the second part of the low back fusion. And it was supposed to be a day surgery. And again, he had complications and ended up staying for 5 days. All of our family is in Eastern Washington, which is over 4 hours away. They can't drop everything to come over. They weren't able to. And so we scrambled. And it just so happened that we had a friend from Eastern Washington who happened to be over on this side who could stay with him for the week.
Wow.
Yeah. But what that did was caused this physical shift in my body. My body responded very negatively to this emotional trauma. But I kept ignoring it for 2 more years. As it was slowly getting worse, I just kept going, nope, my job, my son it's like a changed person. He is doing so much better. I gotta drive him. So when I would take him on days for scuba diving, it would be a 15-hour day on days that we would go to the furthest Olympic peninsula to his favorite lake that he would dive to. That's a 15-hour day.
Right.
And that's super long. And then I would have to spend a couple days in bed to recoup from that. And
Right.
then it would be driving 45 minutes this way or an hour this way or an hour and a half. That was my life. And I didn't begrudge it. I loved it. Then 3 years ago, I decided to, I met this gal. This is hilarious. So I'm very cautious about what I eat. I eat very non-processed, very non-GMO, no hormones, no antibiotics. I like to can and water bath my own foods. That's how I grew up. That's how I like to eat. I don't eat a whole lot of boxed foods. Our food is as from scratch as I can make it. And I found this gal on Facebook for eggs. And so she started delivering eggs and we struck up a friendship, which was great, but she was quite a bit younger than us. But then she became our house cleaner to help out while I was doing this because I wasn't doing so well. So she invited me down to lunch down in Olympia, which is 45 minutes south. And I love Olympia. It's got some great thrift shops, which I am a thrift shop gal. My whole house is nothing but thrift shop finds, estate sale finds, inherited, gifted, roadside finds. Spray paint is your friend. I love original art, that kind of stuff. And so I was driving on the freeway. I'm going 70 miles an hour and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to pass out. I do not feel good. What am I going to do? And I'm in the fastest lane because I can't turn my neck to the left. So I'm not safe in the slow lane and I'm not safe in the middle lane because I can't turn. So I turn my neck the best in the fast lane. But there was all this traffic. So I'm trying to get over. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to pass out. I see an exit. I remember putting the blinker on. I remember putting my foot on the brake. And I remember starting to turn to take the exit. That's all I remember. I had never taken the exit before. I didn't know anything. And apparently I had slumped over the front of the wheel. And I wouldn't stop passing out. I would come to and pass out, come to, pass out. I lost my bladder. They told me that I kept handing them my phone saying, look, on my phone, on my iPhone under health, because it had all my medical stuff in there, all my current medications, because at the time I was taking medications for my migraines, for my nerve damage, and for my fibromyalgia. And they said, "Have you taken any medications today? Any narcotics, anything like that?" And I said, "Yes, I had a narcotic at 6 o'clock this morning, and this was at noon." So it shouldn't have, that wasn't affecting me at the time. And I purposely didn't take any because I knew I was driving. And then I would pass right back out. Then the police officers came and they were knocking on the window and trying to get me to wake up. And they were like, "Wake up, wake up, wake up." And they couldn't get me to stay awake. So here I am sitting in my own urine, keep passing out, and they're getting angry with me. And I remember hearing them saying, "She's drugged out of her gourd. She's drugged out of her gourd. Look at her." And I was dressed nice. I had a vintage inspired dress with a little crinoline on underneath. I was not looking like I was some drugged out person. You know, it just didn't make sense. The EMTs come over and they couldn't get me to wake up. They kept trying to shake me. And apparently one of the EMTs said, "Lay her back, lay her back." I don't remember that part. They lay me back, and within 30 seconds, 30 seconds, I'm coherent, I'm embarrassed, I'm mortified. I don't know what's going on. They load me up and I spend 11 hours in the emergency room. I have brachycardic condition. My heart rate was down to 48. My blood pressure was hanging out at anywhere between 74 over 44 to 80 over 60, which is fairly low.
Yeah.
And they released me saying, we don't know what to do. And the next day I called my GP. She said, "Get in here now, now." And I said, "Okay." Richard drives me, which it's a half-mile away. My doctor is, and I love her. And she got on the phone and she got me to every specialist while I was sitting there. And she said, "I don't want her in 2 weeks. I don't want her in 2 months. I want her in tomorrow, the next day." And so I got MRIs, EEGs, cardiologist. So the cardiologist put me on a 7-day heart monitor. Cardiologist calls me up and says, "Gonna have to do a 30-day study." And first of all, first thing I do is my heart starts going super fast at that. In fact, now it's going super fast just thinking about it, because that's really scary. I go into the cardiologist. The cardiologist says, "Well, I have good news and not so good news. First of all, your ultrasound, your stress test, all of that, structurally, your heart is fine. You have a mild mitral valve prolapse that you're already aware of. That's not affecting this. Structurally, your heart is fine. However, you need to go see a neurologist who specializes in dysautonomia." Never heard that word. Never heard that word. I'm like, "What in the world is that?" And I said, oh, okay. So I get home. First thing I do is join every single Facebook support group under dysautonomia. Okay. Don't read anything about it except for what the doctor had told me at the office. And I put in one question and one question only. And I think I joined like maybe 8, 9 groups. And I put in one question. "I live in Washington State. It looks like I need to be diagnosed. Who is the best neurologist in Washington State for dysautonomia?" Sat back. One name came up, Dr. Eric Armitano. I had my GP call him up and he said, "Come in." So I got in within 2 weeks. He said, "You have to be off of all of your medication and come see me in 2 weeks." So I tapered off of all of my medication, which was really gnarly. I'm not going to lie, because gabapentin, I had to get off of gabapentin, which is a nerve medication, and my Savella, which helps with the fibromyalgia. So I was in a lot of pain, both from the nerve and from the Savella. and no narcos, nothing. I had nothing. And I went in for this complicated test. It's called a tilt table test with a sotomotor test. Sotomotor is sweat, and it basically how your body regulates its body temperature. And the tilt table test is where you lay flat, and usually homeostasis, you're really cool, flat. And your homeostasis is where your body is like, all right, everything's good. And then he tilts you up vertical to see what happens. And you're hooked up to all of these things. Well, I failed spectacularly. It was bad. He started asking me questions and I couldn't answer. I was stuttering. I started crying. I would look at Richard and I couldn't, I was shaking really badly, which is one of my side effects if I get too tired or anything. Um, it was scary. And 10 minutes later, he lays me back down. 10 minutes later, he comes in, he gives me this very long diagnosis. And he says, basically, you have very low blood pressure and your heart rate likes to spike. And most people, when you stand, your heart rate goes up a little bit. When I stand, I could be laying down, it could be 60, 65 beats per minute, and I'll stand and immediately it'll go 130, 140, 150. And then a minute later, it'll jump up higher. A minute after that, higher. A minute after that, higher. And then you might as well yell timber and Thea's done, because this time my blood pressure's bottoming out.
Right.
So I've worked really hard with my neurologist for the last 3 years to come up with a treatment protocol that is getting me to the point where in the last 5 months, I'm vertical. I'm vertical for the first time in 3 years. I've lived my life horizontal. I call it the horizontal lifestyle for the last 3 years in bed. And so I started seeing a pain clinic a year ago, and I got really frustrated. And insurance is really a tricky, gnarly little thing because they make you go through all of these hoops, and I try all of these opioids, and they made me very raging angry for no reason. And I finally went in and said, I can't do this anymore. And I saw a new PA, and she said, let's try something different. Let's try low dose naltrexone. And I said, I don't know what that is, but okay, let's do it. Because you get to a point in your chronic illness life where side effects or whatever, you're already dealing with side effects upon side effects upon side effects. They're become a non-issue. It's like, I already deal with that. Let's give this a try, because you're just throwing darts at it now.
Right. Right.
This low dose naltrexone has been a game changer for me in the biggest manner. And I couple it with CBD oil. And in September, I started TikTok. My niece said to me, she came and visited, and she said, Auntie, I think this would be a perfect opportunity for you to use as a platform for your dysautonomia, because you're funny, and I think that you have something to share. Now, the biggest thing that people don't realize, and this is really what I want to get across to people, is that there are over 3 million people a year diagnosed with dysautonomia. It is one of the most common unknown diagnoses in the United States. Wow. And here's the really scary thing. And I really, really want people to understand this. Well, there's 2 things. 1, there's not enough research going out for it. 2, COVID long haulers. In fact, I follow a TikTok long hauler, COVID long hauler, who's been paralyzed, and she has dysautonomic conditions now from it. And people who have been suffering with long haul COVID-19. They're called long haulers. They're suffering from, a lot of them are suffering from dysautonomic conditions now. So we are going to be seeing more and more of this as a side effect from COVID. And isn't that a scary thought? It takes 6 years for somebody to get diagnosed with this because it's an invisible illness. I don't look sick.
Right.
You don't realize that I have a chest port.
Right.
And I have 6 liters of saline a week. So I am hooked up. This is my, this is my saline pool. And I do 4 hours a liter. And I do Monday through Thursday, I do 1 bag for 4 hours. And on Fridays, I do 2 bags. So 8 hours. So today is an 8-hour day that I'm literally hooked up to my BFF. That's a lot. That's a lot. And that's kind of my story. So I have taken to TikTok to use it as my social media platform in a fun way to share what it's like to be an ambulatory wheelchair user, what it's like to be hooked up to your IV, because, you know, if I had to wait to be off my IV to make TikToks, I'd never make TikToks.
Right. Yeah. And
so
sorry, your content is so inspiring and so powerful. I mean, the one that keeps coming to mind is when you were having the pooling in your legs and you're like, this is what happens. And you could barely get your words out. Your husband had to help you finish your words. It really like made me stop, like, holy like you're hilarious and you're upbeat and you're, you know, like you said, you would have no idea. And then to see like, no, this is my normal too.
Yeah.
Was very powerful and very brave of you to do, because I guarantee a lot of people would not be willing to show that vulnerability.
Well, if you don't do that, how is anybody going to know?
Right. Right.
If you don't flay yourself open and be real, how is anybody else going to understand for somebody else who suffers from something?
Right. Yeah. And
there's no shame in my chronic illness game.
No.
There's nothing off limits. There's no question that I won't answer. There's nothing that I won't share, because everything that I share is going to help somebody else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited to see. I mean, you've already, like, I think when we met, you were brand new. I think I had just started it, and I really hadn't started making them. Yeah. I didn't understand the concept, and I started following you, and I was like, oh, okay. I can do this. Yeah. Oh gosh. I love your video so much.
Thank you.
You also, I love your IV pole. Okay. So you have to talk a little bit about that.
So that's my hook. That's my shtick. So when you're hooked up to your IV pole and all of these people are doing all of these fun lip syncing and dancing and all of this, and I'm like, I got Sal, my saline pouch, you know, what are you going to do with Sal here? And one day it just came to me and I just grabbed it and it became my mic.
Yes.
It became my mic. And not only did it, and it's twofer. Not only is it my mic for my lip syncing fun stuff, it's my mic to desensitize, destigmatize subconsciously palliative care.
Right.
When you think of IV pool, when you think of saline or things like that, you think acute, you think cancer, you think hospice, you think, you know, yep. You get, it's palliative. I'm having this baby for the rest of my life. And you know what? I'm celebrating it. I celebrate it. I'm like, do you see this? Do you see this? This is my life giver. This is
Yeah.
my life giver. This keeps me vertical. I love it. Mondays, I get so excited. That's access day. That's when my home health nurse comes. And I've posted several videos on my Mondays when my home health nurse comes. And I'm like, she's here. Look at this. Look, because that's how excited I get for it. It's like a kid who's going to go trick or treating, that excitement. And I feel the same way about my wheelchair. I really struggle with people who don't embrace their mobility aids, because that gives you the help that you need. And you need to celebrate that, because my wheelchair gets me where I need to be, and somebody doesn't have to push me, and I can walk, and I don't have to pass out, and I can enjoy things. I went to a kangaroo and wallaby ranch with my family. Why? Because my husband and son did a little bit of research, and they got me we found a foldable 50-pound wheelchair. And it's fantastic. I can take it on planes with me, and it's about the size of a medium suitcase. You can shove it into a car really easily. And, but it's heavy duty enough. I can go on lawns. So I got to go with my family.
Amazing.
Family outings.
Right.
And I can't wait to go scuba diving with my son again and do shore support. Now, I can't drive until I am 6 months syncope free, which means not passing out.
Yeah.
I haven't met that criteria yet. In fact, I had a massage the other day, and I actually passed out on the table. One of her massage moves just triggered an episode, and I passed out on the table, and I have to count that.
Right.
And so that's not a safe thing for me. And so now my 6 months starts again.
Right.
From the other day.
Right.
But I have hope.
Exactly.
I have hope.
And, even we get so wrapped up in the doctor's appointments, other people saying, oh, I've heard this, or I've known someone who has this, and we don't take our own journey and make it what it is and make the best of it. Right. And so I am you're going to change so many lives, because not even just people with the same diagnosis you have, but it can apply to any bit of life,
Yes. Yeah. And so my big thing that I want to share with everybody is like, I stopped watching TV 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is I have found that I need to inundate my body with positivity. Mm-hmm. I need to say mantras in my mind. I need to fill myself up, because when I do, positivity and what I believe comes out. Right. But the same is for the opposite. And then if you allow, even people will say, well, I just watch TV in the background. Well, it's still getting in there. And so when you hear passive aggressive or snarky or drama or things like that, it starts to skew your perspective on life. And I found it skewed my perspective on life. I found that I didn't want to look at the world in a jaded way. Right. And so people keep saying, you're so positive, you're so positive. Well, it's because I make the choice to do that. So with my son, I have the Mama T mantra. I say it to him every time he leaves the house. And now it has become something that people who visit, because I've been homebound for 3 years. I get my groceries delivered. Somebody drives me. If I go somewhere, I only usually go for doctor visits, things like that. So I'm reliant on everybody, wholly reliant on other people to get me where I need to be. So I'm always home. And my big thing is when people come to visit or when they leave, I say this: be successful and make good choices. Because it's easier to make a poor choice, not a bad choice. Get the word bad out of your vocabulary. It's not bad, it's a poor choice. So it's easier to make a poor choice than it is a good choice, because it always feels better, because good choices are hard. You have to work at them. They're not as fun. You don't get that immediate fulfillment, even though it's a naughty fulfillment. Usually, naughty fulfillment is, you shouldn't eat the gluten, but yet you want that pretzel, so you eat it,
Right.
and then later on you pay for it.
Right.
That's a poor choice. So you have to make good choices. And the only way that you can be successful, nobody can be successful for you. You can't be successful for somebody else. You can be successful for you. They can't be successful for you. And the only way you can do that is by making good choices, by putting the work in, by saying the mantras to yourself. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of good things. That if something negative happens in my life, that's okay. And it's okay to sit in uncomfortable feelings and work through them, because you can't experience the positives if you haven't experienced the negatives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I absolutely adore you. And I'm sure everyone watching this you just give off such radiant love. And so if any, where can people find you? Because I know they're going to be searching for you.
Well, my handle on TikTok is Scuba Mamacita. And Mamacita comes from, we had 4 exchange students before Sebastian was diagnosed from Europe. And our Swiss daughter, with whom we're extremely close to, she calls my husband Papalino. She calls me Mamacita, which means little mama, little papa in Swiss German, or second parents. And then the scuba is for my son. So the handle came about when I was being the scuba mamacita. That was my thing. So you can find me on TikTok and Instagram under Scuba Mamacita, but you can also look me up under Thea Sugarman Lee. Yes, 2 last names. I honor my adoptive family by keeping my maiden name. I love my maiden name, Sugarman. How cool is that?
It is cool.
And Lee is my married last name, Lee. And Thea is short for Philothea. It's actually Thea, not Thea, though you can call me Thea, but I might not. Like, if we're out somewhere and you say Thea, I probably won't answer. But if you say Thea, I'll answer. It's like one of those things. So you can find me on Facebook that way. I do have a link tree on my TikTok, which will have links to, I have a YouTube channel that doesn't have anything very much on it, but if you want a more in-depth interview, I do have one of those on dysautonomia that I did for a friend's blog. Excuse me. Salty water.
No, you're fine.
Dysautonomia, one of those things I get: dry eyes, dry mouth. I drink a lot of salt. I have to have 10 to 20 grams of salt a day. So I actually drink salt water.
Okay. Wow.
I love it. It's like candy to me. It's super sweet to me. Sebastian Richard says it tastes like the ocean. I'm like, yummy. So you can find me on those 3 social media platforms. I'm an old married lady with an adult child, so I don't do Snapchat. I don't do, that's the only other, I don't know any other ones.
I don't either.
Okay.
TikTok's where it's at.
All right. I'm 47. I'm almost 48 years old. In February, I'll be 48. It's, TikTok was a big jump for me.
It was a big jump, but look at you.
But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And please, everybody, come find my IV whole
Do it.
mics.
Yes.
And I take requests. They're hilarious. I have
Yes.
fun.
Which one did I have you do? I had you do respect.
Yes, that was
It
that
was
was
so
great. I put on a vintage inspired dress that
good.
was slimlined, and I slicked
Oh,
down my hair, and
you look
yeah,
beautiful.
that one was fun.
Patty.
Yeah,
Oh, my love. Well, I appreciate you coming on here so much.
I
Uh,
appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
well, I'm gonna have to have you back again because
Yes,
I just love talking and I could talk to you all night.
I
So
know. Me too. Me too.
we'll do it again and
All
we'll
right.
find another thing to talk about. Or
Absolutely.
all right.
All right.
Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone who's tuned in. I think you've had like viewers on here the entire time. So
Ah,
I know people are watching and loving it. So thank you
well,
so
thank
much.
you.
And I will talk with you soon.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.